What up, fam? We're doing Mod 9 quiz review. Let's do it. So, match each quadrilateral with its correct description. Please note on these questions, it is not, it's going to be the least specific answer. So, for instance, number one, four sides are congruent. All squares have four congruent sides, but the correct answer to this question is actually the rhombus because there's a more specific answer as a square. So, squares not only have all four sides are congruent, but also the angles are congruent. Okay, two pairs of opposite sides are parallel. That's our definition of a parallelogram. And two pairs of adjacent sides are congruent. So adjacent sides is the key word there. So adjacent sides being congruent is going to be a kite. That's letter E. And then four right angles are congruent. That, of course, they're congruent. Maybe it means quadrilateral that has four right angles. A little bit of a typo on this question here. We're going to go ahead and go letter B. And then number five, one pair of opposite sides are parallel to each other. So one pair of opposite sides are parallel is going to be called a trapezoid. And I guess four angles are congruent, four sides are congruent. That's going to be a square, just like I was talking about earlier. Let's keep on going. Which information is sufficient to prove that quadrilateral ABCD is a parallelogram? So this is one of those sets of rules that we wanted to talk about before. So AD being parallel to BC, that's not quite enough because that could be a trapezoid, so it could be one that's not true. So that one doesn't work out. Letter D, if the diagonals are congruent and perpendicular, that could definitely be true. That'd make it a rhombus. DAB is congruent to DCB. That's not enough. We need two pairs. Over here we have AB equals BC. So AB equals DC and AD equals BC. That's enough. So that's enough, letter C. So C is enough. This one could be, though. Diagonal perpendicular. It doesn't, if they're congruent and perpendicular, I think it has to make it a rhombus. I wonder. You know what? I'm moving on with my life. It's enough to show that they are perpendicular. I'm gonna pause really quick though. Yeah, I want to make sure. If you had selected letter D, that's actually a square, which is a type of parallelogram. So I don't like this question. I'm moving on to the next one. Anyways, which information is sufficient? So B and D actually, by the way. So I don't know. This is the one they want, I imagine. Anyways, number 8. Which information is sufficient to prove that parallelogram ABCD is a rectangle? So we know it's a parallelogram already. So in order for a parallelogram to be a rectangle, it must be the case that the that two next door neighbor adjacent angles are the same. So ABC has to be the same as ADC. That doesn't work because those are opposite. Those are automatically true for a parallelogram. BC, that's automatically true for a parallelogram. BA is congruent to CD. That's automatically true for a parallelogram. So it's got to be letter D. The diagonals are congruent. Yeah. So if the diagonals are congruent, yeah. That's it. That's the answer. I'm done. Moving on with my life. All right. Number 9. Which information is sufficient to prove that parallelogram ABCD is a rhombus? So again, that rhombus means that all the sides have the same length. So if the diagonals are perpendicular, that automatically makes the parallelogram into a rhombus. So boom, letter D. Number 10, which information is sufficient to prove that the parallelogram ABCD is a square? Which ones of these will make it into a square? So diagonals bisect each other. That's true for all parallelograms. So yet again, there's only like one reasonable answer here. I don't even know what it says here. We have ADB. There gives you that 45. So they're saying this is 45. We have CDB. This one's 45. Okay, yeah. And then ABD. And then they're saying, okay, 45 and then 45, which would make all of them 45 across the entire board because it's a parallelogram. So yeah, that's what they're talking about. Given this is a parallelogram, what is EC? So parallelogram rule says that this has to be the same as this. That means that this has to be 45, and 45 plus 45 has to be 90. Easy enough. Given this parallelogram, what is the measure of FHG? So FHG right there, this is our alternate interior angles. They're equal to each other, so 80 is the entire answer. We don't even need to think about it. Number 13, given the parallelogram, what is the measure of angle Z? So all parallelograms have a specific rule, and that is to say that the next door neighbor angles always add up to 180. That is also true for trapezoids. So 8x plus 11, well, it's not always true for trapezoids. Certain angles add up for trapezoids. I apologize. 12x plus 9 is equal to 180 degrees. And we're just going to do a little bit of math here. We have 8 plus 12 is 20. 11 plus 9 is also 20. Equals 180. Subtract 20 on both sides. And then divide both sides by 20, and you get a beautiful 8 as our x, but that's not the final answer because the measure of angle Z is equal to 8 multiplied by our 8 that we just got there, plus 11. Using our calculator, that's going to be 75 as our final answer. Let's move on to the back side. So somebody was saying when I was doing these, I was going too fast. I feel like I was going too fast already. I'm going to slow down here. We have WU is 7x minus 2. So WU is equal to 7x minus 2. Vx is 4x plus 13. So it's a rectangle. So the rectangle has congruent diagonals. So 7x minus 2. That's that entire length here. Vx, that's this, so those are equal to each other. So Vx plus 13, we're going to have to solve this equation here. Solving this one, we're going to go ahead and do my down the middle idea. We got that down the middle concept, minus 4x, moving that 2 to the other side. That's going to be 2 plus 13. We got 3x is equal to 15, and dividing both sides by 5, and we're going to get x is equal to 5. And if x is equal to 5, it wants to know what WU is. So WU is equal to 7 multiplied by 5 minus 2, and that's going to give us 33. I still did that too fast. Oh well. Given the rhombus, what is FEG? So one of the rules for a rhombus in general is that the angles are bisected, or in other words, this right here is the same as this one, and this one is the same as that one. I'm going to pause really quick. I need to take a drink. Okay, so those are all the same. So in some sense, it always creates these isosceles triangles. So because it creates these isosceles triangles, then we know we can basically say that just like our old isosceles triangle problems, there are kind of two methods here. So method number 1 is 2x plus 58 is equal to 180 degrees because you're going to give both of these equal to x. The other option to doing it, if you wanted to do this, is going to be 180 minus 58 and then divide by 2. Regardless of which method you do, you will get the same answer because on this one, look at what you're doing. You're subtracting 58 on both sides, right? So once you subtract 58 on both sides, you get 2x is equal to 122. And over here, you're going to get 122 divided by 2. So if you notice, you're doing exactly the same thing either way, regardless for F, E, G here. All of them have to be the same. So we're going to get 61 degrees for all of them. Given the rhombus, what is the measure of Bay? The measure of Bay, BAE here. So one of the rules for a rhombus is that the intersections here create right angles. So all we have to do in this one is going to be 90 minus that 74, and that's going to give us our beautiful little 16 degrees as our answer. Given this is a kite, what is the measure of angle C? So one of our big rules for a kite is that, man, I cannot speak. I need to take a drink again. All right, we're back. We were just talking about one of the rules for a kite is that opposite angles are always the same, that where the two congruent pairs that aren't congruent meet, but these ones don't have to be the same. So that means that this guy down here has to be a 135, and this is the one that we don't know. We can figure out that x has to be equal to the same thing as 100, or not 180. What am I doing? X is going to be equal to 360 minus all the other ones. So 135 minus 135 minus the 75, and that's going to be our final answer, whatever that happens to be. Once I type all that into my calculator, we got 360 minus 135 minus 135 minus the 75, and that's going to give you a beautiful little 15 degrees as our final answer. You've given the kite, use the Pythagorean theorem to find BC. So we're looking at this length over here. If you were memorizing my rules from earlier in the year, you would have already known that 8, 15, 17 is a Pythagorean triple. So you can kind of just write 17 right away and circle it. But if you could not remember that, we know that 8 squared plus 15 squared has to equal C squared. and therefore 64 plus 225 is equal to c squared. 289 is equal to c squared, and then you can square root 289 to get c, and therefore c is equal to 17. So, and that's another way of doing it, but I really think memorizing 8, 15, 17 is beneficial to you in the long run. And again, it's a kite. So right angle. Given the isosceles trapezoid, what is the measure of angle H? So one of the big rules for isosceles trapezoids is that these two angles here are guaranteed to be the same. These are called our base angles. In addition, for our base angles, these two over here have to add up to 180 degrees. So these two for all trapezoids end up having to add up to 180. So we could figure out that 180 minus 144 is going to give us the measure of E, which is also going to be the measure of angle H. So we get 36 degrees, and we move on with our life. Use the mid-segment formula base 1 plus base 2 to find the mid-segment YZ. Is it really a... I don't know. I don't know if I want to call it a base 1, base 2. I feel like that formula is weird. I'm going to pause for a second. All right, we're good. Formula's fine. It's just not usually a base. Usually it's like a top and a bottom. But either way, they're talking about this number and this number, and they're saying that the mid-segment, the value in the middle, is always half the other ones together. So use 16 plus 28, and then divided by 2. We can do this in our head. We don't even need a calculator. 16 plus 28, that's going to be 44. Divided by 2 is going to be a beautiful little 22. And that's all that we have left for the day. Peace out. Have a great rest of your day.